Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Seems like it's been forever since I've been up here, but it's such a great day, and it's good to be back here so that I could actually eat a meal and feel good after. And so we always have such wonderful potlucks. We're spoiled here, aren't we? And then it's always hard to come back into the auditorium because we're all like so tired and because so full from kind of like in a food coma. I had to only go through one time though, so I'm not gonna overdo it. But yeah, wonderful day, and we thank Solomon and his family for being here. It's been great having them. Wonderful lesson today. And before I begin, and just going to be a few minutes since this is our all-in-one, is Carly sent us a text message and said a while ago, I think it was during class, Charlie just started coughing and couldn't stop coughing, and is having a hard time since he's coughing so much. He's having kind of a hard time breathing. So she just wants to, and I don't think I don't want to scare anybody. It's that serious, but still, when a little one can't stop coughing, something's come upon him. So, whoever has the closing prayer, please pray for little Charlie. We always miss them when they're not here. Statistics show that 1 out of every 5 women experience domestic abuse sometime in their lifetime. We look at another statistic, over 3 million children, there's over 3 million cases each year of child abuse, just in the USA alone. In the world today, Sally, there are well over 150 million orphans. And think about that number, 150 million. I think the United States has like 300 million. So that's half the people in the United States, if I'm using the right figure there. Half fills up the United States. That's how many orphans there are in the world today. Children, as we know, they're being exploited. They're being put under dangerous situations where people are trying to leave their country and make a better life for their kids, or they're being trafficked. The human trafficking is huge. It's all over. I hear it's not even very far from us, where we got to watch our children, and these poor kids become victims of these monsters. That's all I could call them, and maybe that's even too good of a name to use. But the sex trafficking business, it's like the drug industry, and kids are being exploited, they're being abused, they're being murdered. And they're even dying. I don't know if you saw that picture of the man and his daughter. If you haven't seen it, it's hard to see, and hopefully you don't have to see it. But it showed a dead man and his daughter under his shirt trying to come into the United States. And I know that's when we think about that, it's just heart-wrenching, isn't it? When you think about these statistics and you think about those images of these poor people, these poor people, these poor children. It's hard enough alone. It's heart-wrenching enough alone when you know that there's adults that are suffering, going through this. I couldn't imagine having my kids and trying to give them a better life, and I can't do it. But really, when we think about it, we have a lot of people pointing the finger. It's their fault. It's their fault. They're not getting the job done. They're just complaining about it, and they're using it for political gain. It's really sad, isn't it? But when you think about it, really, who is behind this? Who's behind, when we look at these statistics, who is that one that's behind this oppression? That's right. It's the devil. The devil is behind it all. He is the great oppressor. In fact, John chapter 8, verse 45 tells us that the devil is a liar, and it says he is a murderer. And he has been from the beginning. See, he doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if it's a beautiful child. The devil wants to hurt that child. He wants to hurt you. And most of all, he wants to hurt God. Yeah, sin. He uses sin. Sin is the weapon that the devil uses. And in many different ways, he knows how to get men and women to fall short of God's glory. It is very difficult to watch anyone go through the oppression of sin, let alone the ones that you love. So they may ask, oh, why, God? And then you could fill in the blank, right? There's a number of things you could put after that. I just had two friends from high school lost their children. Each family lost their daughter. And, you could think about what's going through their hearts, that pain and agony that they're going through. Why? We see those things in the world, and we may want to ask, why? Why, God? But the thing that we can find comfort in is we know that God is there with us. The weight of that pain, the weight of that suffering, that agony that we may go through in this life. And we know it's overwhelming, but we could have that comfort to know God is there. See, David recognized that God is there. See, he is there hurting with us. And the Bible also tells us that God is going to have his justice. Look at Psalm chapter 10. Psalm chapter 10, verse 17 and 18, he writes, O Lord, you have heard the desire of the humble. You will strengthen their heart. You will incline your ear to vindicate the orphan and the oppressed, so that man who is of the earth will no longer cause terror. Yeah, we know there's terrorists, both foreign and domestic, that we can think about daily. But there's going to be a time when that's going to go away. God's going to take that away. See, God's eyes are upon those who are oppressed. We have a loving God whose heart breaks every time his children are oppressed and they go through pain and they go through suffering. It's not fun to go through those things. But he has promised one day the oppression is going to be no more. It's going to come to an end. So we can think about it, well, how can we fight the oppressor? How can we fight that? There's things that happen that there's nothing that we could do. But the Bible tells us in Ephesians chapter 6, Paul tells us to put on the full armor of God. That's one way we need to do. We need to put on the Word of God, to never take that off, to wear that daily as we go through this life. Of course, there's a lot of fighting going on in this world, but when we look at that passage, verses 10 through 17, we see that really we do not fight against flesh and blood. Right? It's against those principalities, those evil spirits. It's against the devil and his angels. That's who the fight is against. And we all know, we read Revelation, and we know who wins. We know we are on the winning side. But we have to put on that full armor of God. Because the sword of the Spirit is what is going to do it for us. The shield of faith. The shoes of the preparation of the gospel. The breastplate of righteousness. All these beautiful things we must wear. And then we can think about there's other ways also. We have to use that, and then we can think about, well, what could we do as his people? There's many things that we could do. There may be some things that we can't do. We could be fathers and mothers to the fatherless. We could end up being foster parents. We could go through that program. We know we have members here who are doing that, who have done that, who are experts at it. We could go to them and say, hey, I want to know about this. We could help those who are orphaned, help those who need Christ-like parents to lead them, to give them a chance in this world. Maybe we could help victims of domestic abuse. We could volunteer down at a shelter. Maybe we could sponsor a kid and help with a kid and pay a certain amount of money a month to help a certain child. They have those Big Brother programs or something like that. There's a number of things that I can't really think about, but there's a number of ways we could help. Get involved with a program for those who are afflicted by alcoholism and drug abuse. We could help them as much as we can. Visit those who are in jail. Send them something about the Bible, a correspondence course, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we could help. But of course, if those aren't the things, it's just to pray. Pray every day for them. Pray for the people that come into their lives to help them in their oppression and their suffering. Pray that we could use that Word of God, the sword, to better their lives, like Solomon was talking about today. To use that Word, that gospel of Christ, to put that in our lives and they could see that and give that to them. Become active in our hearts to help in any way that we can for those who are hurting. James writes in James chapter 1, verse 27, he says, "Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself unstained from the world." See, God expects us to live righteous lives as we go out there and we help those who are in need. If you are in need today, you have so many around you that will help. They are there for you. We're never alone in the family of God, are we? We've got Jesus. We got each other. We got the family. And if you have not put on Christ in baptism, if you aren't a child of God, there's no better time than to start today to have those sins washed away in the water of baptism. The power of God, that blood of Christ will be applied to your lives. Come now as we stand and we sing the invitation song.